Tell us where you were born, where you grew up, and then what happened? What got you interested in performing?
Well, I was born in Melbourne, at the Royal Women's Hospital, and I will always be a Melbourne boy. I do love travelling. I do love travelling for work, but I'll always be a Melbourne boy, born and bred. And I think what probably got me into singing was, fortunately, my parents sent me to a private school. I went to Haileybury College, and they had a very good drama department, and they were really passionate about performing and sort of helping, in the industry as best they could, which eventually got me into performing arts at Monash University. But I think in terms of like my acting and my singing, it was definitely all from that school. I spent most of my time in the music and drama department, so that's where I got my passion for it. There's nobody else in my family has the drive and the passion for performing because, as we know, it's quite a difficult industry. But I think, I can't even say that I got it from my mum and dad because they hate that. It's not that they hate public speaking or anything like that, but it's just I'm the odd one out in the family.
So did you have like a chicken a moment where it was, I'm going to do this. This is no longer just something I'm dabbling in. I'm going to make this my career. It's my calling.
Yeah, I think from just way back playing. I mean, I played the trumpet at school, so I learned how to read music before I started acting or singing, and I think as I came into more sort of drama and music theatre back at school, I just kept on going back to it, and I kept on. I even had there was that time back in whenever it was year 9 or 10 when we had the meeting with our careers counsellor, and they all said, no, what are you doing? Why would you want to become an actor? Let's look at journalism or something else where you can, you can still do some public speaking and those kinds of things, but not acting. It was just in me enough that I ignored that advice and just decided that this is what I wanted to do, or this is who I am, rather,
So, Steve, is it the storytelling? Do you think?
It is, yeah. I think it's more in the storytelling for me, especially. There was always the drive of acting and performing on television and film and theatre, straight theatre, but I was never a dancer, so I always thought, well, I'm not going to be able to go into music theatre because you've got to start somewhere. You've got to be able to dance. You've got to be able to move so you can cover lead roles and then eventually to get those roles. But I think definitely telling story through song. It's a really special thing, and it's not just music theatre that you tell a story through song. I think it's all music. I think it's all songs. It all has a story. It all has a moment, and it all makes you feel. So that's what's sort of important to me.
So if there's a fundamental difference between doing a scene where there's no music and then singing a song where you've got music, what is that difference?
It's very different. I mean, a scene you can go back and watch, or you can evoke emotion, but singing a song is. Music is, there's no other purpose for music than to make you feel, really. I mean, there isn't. There's to make you feel, to tell a story, to there's to explain something to someone that you maybe can't explain. So music's really important, and no one really listens to music as a bad thing. No one hears a song and it doesn't make them feel something, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. So. I think that probably the main difference between just doing a scene on television and a song is that, you get that one moment to tell that story through the song, especially on stage when you've just got a live audience there and you can't go back and retake it. You have to really give everything, and you really have to tell a story. And that's one thing that the main point that I learned from Tim was act and tell the story, because anyone can go in and sing a song if they've got a good voice and they can just sing a song. But it's the most important thing that I learnt from him was telling a story and acting, because without that, then the song's just notes on a page. So they're very, very different feelings, for sure.
That's so nice to hear, because I know that Tim talks about feel, you know, all the time. It's his catchphrase, feel. It's so important. So, Steve, you've done both television and live theatre. Do you have... Tell us the difference.
Well, yeah, film and TV, you learn the script and you do a very quick rehearsal and you're there and you do a take, and if they don't like it, you work on it, you do another take, and then they cut it and it's done. And you can't go back and do it again. It's there forever. It's very, very, very different. Music theatre is, or even, you know, live theatre requires a level of, I mean, it does on television as well, but it requires a level of like being and being in the moment and all of that kind of, you know, wanky stuff. that's really important to that genre. And in terms of a feeling, I mean, I always get asked, and a lot of performers will get asked, doing 8 shows a week, and now I've done, you know, close to 600 shows as Fiyero. Do I ever get sick of it? But the answer is no, because every audience has paid the money to see the same level of storytelling as what you've given the previous audience. And so that's the major difference between film and television and music theatre. Is music theatre's, if you're getting a good gig and you're in a good show, it's consistent and you're telling the same story over and over again. So you've got to find ways to make it fresh, and you've got to find ways to make it fresh and stay within the validity of the storytelling and how it's directed and how it's written, to then bring life to that character every night. Whereas television, it's done and dusted, and you've got to be on and you've got to be focused and you've got to nail the best take, because all takes can be different, just like every show that we do overnight can be slightly different. So yeah, they're very, very different monsters. You know, theatre's big and film and TV is like here, like in the current frame that we are. So it's very personal and it's very driven by what's going on in your eyes and behind your eyes, and you know, so they're both very, very different monsters, and they're both fantastic in their own right. I just happen to be loving music theatre at the moment.
And so let me ask you this question. What is it about Fiyero, the character, that you like? And, you know, what is that keeps you fresh, keeps you new? Do you like, what do you keep discovering? Just tell us a little about that process.
Well, he's a really, although it's, I mean, obviously you've got Elphaba and Glinda, and they're obviously the main protagonists in the show. However, Fiyero slips in there, and his journey is it's a really good one. It's a really important one for the show. It's a really important one for both Glinda and Elphaba, and mainly for himself as a character in the show. And his journey starts from, you know, this playboy party prince who comes from a really privileged background, although very educated. And there's still things that I learn in the show, believe it or not, like lyrically, how well it's written and how important it is for Fiyero's transition into two, and the love that he gets for Elphaba. And there's just a lot of layers to Fiyero that every night I can discover, which is really good. It's not a constant kind of drive through the show. There's a change with Fiyero, and it's a really important change when he sort of realizes exactly who he is and who he wants to be, and he doesn't need all of the other fame and fortune that he can get by staying with Glinda and staying with the Emerald City, and rather he just wants to be with Elphaba. And it's such an important, special journey for me every night that I'm very lucky to play Fiyero. And like I said, it's not the biggest role in the show, but I mean, it's the biggest male role in the show, and it's a really important role, and it's just a fun character to play. I mean, I get to sing Dancing Through Life, and then I get a beautiful duet with Elphaba, which is still a really challenging song for me. And I remember working on it with Tim a lot, because there's a certain tone in that song that requires, you know, a really beautiful floated tone rather than a belt tone or a falsetto. And so it's still really challenging for me. So technically it keeps me fresh and it keeps me focused every night. So I'm really, really happy to play that role every night. It was one of those roles that I just really wanted to play, and I'm lucky enough to play it every night.
Yes, I believe you are. Seriously. Because I think being a performer, we're actually in a fantastic position to be able to take those stories to an audience, but there's also something about the story that I believe is for us at the same time. You know what? You're telling this story every night, but you're kind of telling it to yourself too. Over and over and over again. It's sort of like it becomes a mantra for you. Like, I often think that do you take on a role in a production because you're at a point in your life where that story is also important for you? I don't know. I sometimes think those things.
Really good way of looking at it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I think it is. I think it has been important to me, and very important transition. Career-wise as well as playing this role. It's it's about. Yeah, it's made me. I've never actually thought of it that way. Never. Not one interview has ever sort of put it in perspective like that. I mean, I like to think of myself as a bit of a party boy, but also transitioning into this point in my life and playing my first lead role. It's kind of like a little bit like the journey that Fiyero takes. So you're right. Yeah.
Well, I can only ask that because I've had a long life. I've had a long life, and I've done 25 years of performing, and it was almost like every show was like, okay, here I am, and this is for me too. It's not just the story I'm telling the audience. That's why I asked that question. So, what's next for you? What's your dream future as a performer?
Well, like any performer, we don't really know where our next meal's coming from. However, I think for me, I would love to play another lead role in music theatre. Whenever that becomes available is up to the producers and people out there to produce a show that I'm right for. I would ultimately love to transition into a bit of film and television as well, so I can keep both genres on the burner. Like every male tenor out there that can maybe tap, the Book of Mormon's coming, so that would be one of the holy grails of music theatre for me. I was lucky enough to see that on Broadway and the original cast, and just fell in love with the show instantly. So I'd love to play Elder Price one day. That would be just a pipe dream. But yeah, doing film and television, I think one of my biggest inspirations out there is Hugh Jackman, because he's so great on film, and yet he can transition and play Valjean, and he can do it all, and so he's probably one of my biggest inspirations. So to be able to do both genres and do them both very well and genuinely, I mean, I'm 32, I'm playing my first lead role as Fiyero, and I just want to continue on down that track and continue to play lead roles and do what's right for me and do what's right for the industry. And I mean, it's hard to there's never a full stop on our industry. There's many roles out there and many things that I definitely want to achieve.
So, Steve, do you have something that you do? Do you have a little routine yourself? Something, like do you have, whether it be weekly, whether it be monthly, on any given, I've got to achieve this, and I've got to do this, and I've got to tick that box. And have you got stuff that you do that helps you move in that direction?
Yeah, I don't think you can ever just sort of stop and go, right, I've reached the peak of my abilities. So I think I'm currently doing tap classes while I'm over here. I was doing them while I was in Brisbane and in Sydney. So I was doing, continue to do vocal lessons when I can and things like that. So it's like a moving beast, really. I don't think you can ever sort of stop. And especially when you do play a role for so long, you've got to do other things. You've got to start going back and doing some classical singing and more legit stuff, and then you've got to shoot a self-tape for television and go and realize how different they are. And I think for me, consistency through a show is important. So just being healthy and drinking lots of water and trying to work towards something better or something new afterwards. Otherwise you just kind of become stale. So I think it's important to sort of realize where you are and put things in perspective and realize that you're not going to be able to do, well, I'm not going to be able to do Wicked forever. So staying fit, staying healthy, and sort of looking ahead and being ready for the next thing, I think is probably my main sort of goals and routines,
Speaking Yeah, speaking of being ready, how do you choose your audition song in your material? What makes you go, you might go through 5 or 6, but then you go, all right, it's this one.
Doing that.
Yeah.
I think it's important to focus on the genre that the show is, and finding a song that really resonates with you, rather than just doing a song because you think it's right for the show and for the audition. I think it's more important to have a song that, they might ask for Cole Porter 1920s style, and you're like, oh God, I've never even sung anything like that before. What do I do? And it's just a matter of doing a lot of research and finding a song that might be 30s, it might be 40s, but it still has that same kind of genre that works really well for you. I think it's more important that you showcase your ability than, maybe get to 90% of exactly what they want to hear, but also it's more important that you showcase your ability and what you can do. Because nowadays there's so many stipulations on auditions. You need to hit a top A, or you need to hit a G sharp, and so then you've got to find a song that's got that in there, and do exactly what they ask and stick to the criteria. So there's always a lot of confusion around audition songs, and I'm not a music theatre encyclopedia, so a lot of the time I ask, I ask people like Tim, or I ask people who live and breathe it, who might know some songs that you might not know. So it's always about having new repertoire, but having repertoire that is good for you as a vocalist and showcases your abilities. I don't think there's any point in going and finding a new audition song for every audition. I think it's about having a genre and having a wave of different songs that you can pick from for different shows, and go, I'm going to choose that one because I know that that's right for this show. It tells the right story. It shows the acting ability and the storytelling through the song that will be great for that character that I'm auditioning for, and that's the song I'm going to choose, rather than stressing out all the time and go, oh my God, what am I going to sing this time? What am I going to sing for that show? So I think having a repertoire is really important.
Fantastic. So you have a book, like a repertoire. I've got this, and I've got a 1920s song, a 1930s song, or 40s, or I've got this song that is a real storytelling song that's perfect for this. So you've actually got stuff ready.
It's legit. It's contemporary. Yep. You don't go into a Les Mis audition and sing, and sing Dancing Through Life from Wicked. You have to sing something that's it's more legit, and then you've got your contemporary stuff, and you just sort of pick and choose. And I think it's really important to have that rather than have something new every time, because I don't think that serves much of a purpose as a vocalist and as a storyteller, because you got to learn something from scratch, and you may as well, auditions, we're all professional auditioners until we get a gig.
This is true.
It's about going in there and giving them what they want, making their job easy. And I know that sounds ridiculous, because I'm the most nervous person in an audition room than anyone I know. So you're always questioning your abilities, and you're always questioning your decisions on what song to sing. That's for sure.
So cast your mind back to when you first started, and imagine we've got a whole bunch of people who've never sung before. What would be your advice to a beginner singer who's
I think everyone's got to start somewhere, and if you're singing in the shower and you love that show, or you love that song and you heard on the radio and you're belting it off, you're belting it out in the car on the way home, and you just love it. I think the best advice is, again, wanky, but it's the best advice is hard work and having a love for that passion. I mean, if you want to become an accountant, you go to university and you study numbers and you study everything about business management and taxes and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to be a singer, you've got to do the same thing. You've got to go and study it. You've got to work hard at it, and it's got to be something that you want. And the best advice anyone's ever given me was probably from my mother, and she said, if you never have a dream, you never have a dream come true. And everyone will tell you that singing is not something that you can have a lucrative career out of. But if it's something that you want to do, I think the most important thing is having a drive for it and a love for it, having the support of your family and friends, and then just going out there and doing everything you can to be what you want to be.
That's fantastic.
They tell you can't.
That's fantastic. You just answered all of like 3 questions all in once there. All at once, and I was like, oh, that's that question. So, what do you think the basic difference between practice? So, you know, you're in the studio, you're singing by yourself, and you're thinking you're doing fantastic stuff, and then you get out there and you're doing in performance. What's the difference between rehearsal and performance? What changes?
Well, during rehearsal, there's no pressure. The only pressure you put on yourself during rehearsal is, what am I trying to say? The only pressure that exists during rehearsal is the pressure that you put on yourself, and the judgy feeling that you always have on yourself, because we're our own worst critics. Mm-hmm. And so if you're in a rehearsal room or you're in a singing lesson and you bung up a note, it doesn't matter. You know, it's all about trying to get to a point where you know that you're ready to go and to perform. Performing, there is a whole new element of pressure. There's the pressure of getting it right for the audience and getting it right for your creative team and getting that note right and that bit of the song right. And that's why music theatre is great, because you get so many chances to get it perfect, and to make yourself feel good. And I think, as I said before, we're our own worst critics, and we put so much pressure on ourselves to perform. But really, we're just telling a story to people. So it's all that's sort of the I think for me personally, the main hurdle for me is always the pressure I put on myself. Whether it is in the rehearsal room and there is no pressure, and you're trying to become a better performer from it and rehearse and push, but then there's always the pressure of going on that night, and then there's the opening night pressure. So they're very, very different. But yeah, and I think there's if you're not currently gigging, you're sitting in the rehearsal room and you're belting your face off and you're working towards a new audition, there's always the pressure of, will I get that gig?
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. So have you done what you'd call, have you ever been really close to doing the perfect performance where you've gone, oh my God, I just wish the camera at that, I want to capture that and put that in a box? Have you got a moment that was just, it was just right? Tell us, have you got anything like that? You can tell us about where you were just flying.
I was just flying. I think, I don't know, it was probably maybe the first time because I did Legally Blonde, and you know, going on as Fiyero is obviously incredible, and when I nail As Long As You're Mine, it's an amazing feeling, and I come off like I've just gotten off the Superman ride at Warner Brothers Movie World. But I think the first time, because I don't know, like playing a cover in Legally Blonde and walking through that door as Warner, when the audience may not have looked at the cast change board or anything like that. The very first time I did that, and walked, because that's the first time that you're introduced to Warner, is he steps straight out or straight into the door of the sorority house and meets our Woods. I think the first time I did that, when I was like, I'm about to sing a song solo, it was just a pinch me moment, because I'd done shows obviously in the ensemble, but not as a principal role before. So I think probably that moment and the excitement and the nerves and the anticipation of stepping out there and feeling the audience go, oh, that's not Rob Mills, who's that? And just the adrenaline and the rush of that, I would have loved to have actually bottled that moment and seen what my face was like. It's probably sheer terror.
Well, you know, so that one, even though you haven't seen it from an outside perspective, it's in your treasure chest, yeah? Like it's one of,
totally.
Yeah. Oh,
totally.
Fantastic. So, if you had a secret to share with performers, what would it be? Like just something that you was just like, I'm just going to give you this little piece of magic. What would that be?
One. I think probably the main one we've touched on before, which is, it's just entertainment. It's just telling a story. It's not, and I should learn to take my own advice, but believe me, but it's just telling a story, and it's what an audience pays to see. They pay to see a story and they pay to feel something. And if you can make somebody feel something, and genuinely give something to the role that somebody can take away, then that's what we do it for. There's no other purpose that we do this for. It makes us feel good. It's an adrenaline rush, and there's no other job out there that you can take a bow for. However, it's just telling a story, and it's depending on how important it is, and it's something that we need to do as humans. And if you're there for any other reason than to just perform and tell a story, then I don't think it's right. And like my mum told me, like I said before, if you never have a dream, you never have a dream come true. And this is one of those industries where you can study for as long as you want and do as many genres of dance as you can, but if you're not the right spice for that recipe, you're not going to get the gig. And you just got to keep going and keep trying and keep performing and keep doing whatever it is you can to get up on that stage or get in front of that camera and tell that story.
That's so good to hear. Any drawbacks? Like, you know, are there any drawbacks? Is there anything that you would, if you could change about the industry, what would it be?
Oh, there's
that you can talk about.
there's drawbacks with everything that everybody does in life, I think. And there's things that are positive in the industry, and there's things that aren't positive. I think it's a really tough question because there's always something that you can complain about, whether gigging or not gigging. I think the main drawbacks are the pressure we put on ourselves, and the pressure that's always out there, the competitive nature. I think maybe the competitive nature is what I would change. Sort of thinking about that question now and nutting it out. I think we're all in this together, and you know, everyone's there to perform and to tell the same story as we keep touching on. And I think the real competitive nature, which just comes naturally to the industry of, I want that role and I could do that role, and you know, I think just we're all one big family, and Australia has a really amazing talent pool, and I think if we can all coexist, and when we get the gigs, we get the gigs, and you know, with that competition comes working in a cafe or working in hospitality or doing a 9-to-5 gig for a while, because everybody needs money to survive. And I think that's one of the main drawbacks of the life that we chose, is the competitive nature of it, and also being out of work.
Okay. So 3 tips to stay on top for performers. What would you give them? Just quickly.
Fitness. Yep. Stay healthy. Stay hydrated. And just be good to yourself. I mean, I think I think fitness and health is one thing, and I think vocal health is another thing, especially in this industry, and to stay consistent, to stay on top of work, but also just to have a reality check every now and again, and just realize that family and friends are important, and there is another world out there other than the show bubble. And I think real life and real family and real friends are important, because they're the ones that have supported you up until this point, and they're the ones that are going to continue to support you when you leave them and you go away and you travel internationally and you've got to sit on Skype like we are now. And that's what's most important for me, is just remembering that your family and friends are at home. And definitely that's most important.
Fantastic. And I'm going to close by asking you, what's next? I know you're gunning for Book of Mormon, but if it wasn't Book of Mormon, you know, I know we were talking about house and holiday, and it doesn't necessarily need to be industry based, but what is it? What's next?
What's next is to get back into my little track car and do a bit of work on that, and have a few races here and there, and get my car back out on the track, because I'm a bit of a rev head, and maybe do a bit of travel. And like we discussed before, I'm lucky enough I've put down a deposit for a place, so now I need to sort of figure that out, and whatever comes, real life has hit, and I need to get a mortgage, and so it's finding the balance now between finances and performing and just real life. So that's what's next for me, and if a new gig comes up, then bloody great.
Well, thank you so much for talking to us today. I'm sure you're going to make all our vocal alchemists out there very happy when they tune in and listen to what your wonderful advice and, you know, see your beautiful smiling face. So, yes, thank you so much, and good luck with the last 4 weeks of Wicked over there in Perth.
Thank you.
And we'll be looking out for your face back here in Melbourne soon.
I will come back and visit for sure.
Beautiful. Fantastic. All right, well, have a beautiful day, and, yeah, speak soon.
Yeah, take care. Nice to catch
Ciao,
up.
ciao. Bye.
See ya.